Hello, I am Edith Newmeyer, and I am the author of the book, The Mystery of Adam. Well, I hope you're doing well today, and I finally get to talk about Ruth. I went to church on Sunday, yesterday, and our pastor spoke about Ruth. And I thought, wow, I really missed Ruth in the book that I'm writing. I mean, she is such a great example. That story about Ruth is such a great example um, of Jesus and the bride. Jesus is the kinsman redeemer, the same as Boaz. Boaz in Ruth was that kinsman redeemer. And so is Jesus. Jesus is also our kinsman redeemer. So the story of Ruth parallels very well the story of Christ finding a bride for himself. So let me just tell you a little bit about Ruth if you do not know about it. There was this couple, and it was around the judges' time, and there was a famine in Israel, and this couple left Bethlehem and went to Moab because Moab had more food. And they had two sons, and while they were in Moab, the husband died. The sons married some Moabite women, and after 10 years, even those sons died. And so the woman, her name was Naomi, was left alone with her two daughter-in-laws. So she hears that the famine in Israel is over, and she goes back. But before she goes back, she tells her daughter-in-laws to go back to their families. Now one goes back, and Ruth says, "No, I am not going back." And of course, she's uttering these very famous words. She says in Ruth 1:19, 1:16, but Ruth said, "Do not urge me to leave you or turn back from following you. For wherever you go, I will go, and where you lodge, I will lodge. Your people shall be my people, and your God, my God. Where you die, I will die, and there I shall be buried." So here she is committing herself to knowing Naomi and the God of Naomi. So the true God, Yahweh. So they go back, and of course they have to live, and so Ruth goes to collect cleams. They call it cleaming. That means they have poor people going in the fields after the harvest to clean up whatever the reapers dropped. And so she's going there, and I don't know if it was a coincidence, but I'm sure she knew about Boaz. I'm sure Naomi told her her about Boaz, because real early in the Ruth, it says before the whole story starts, it says in chapter 2, now Naomi had a kinsman of her husband, a man of great wealth, of the family of Elimelech, which was the husband of Naomi, whose name was Boaz. Okay, so that was right at the beginning. I don't know if Naomi at that point was aware of it. I don't know if Ruth was aware of it, but it happened that Ruth went to clean behind the reapers of Boaz in the fields of Boaz because he was rich. Okay. And so, of course, Boaz noticed her right away, and he heard about Ruth and Naomi coming back, and he heard only good things about Ruth. Matter of fact, in chapter 3:11, he calls Ruth a woman of excellence. Wow. Okay. Now, we know that Ruth was not an Israelite. We know that she was a Moabite. So she was a Gentile. Okay. I believe the Moabites came from Lot. So they did come out of the family of Abraham. But again, they were Moabites, and so not Israelites, and so they were considered Gentiles. But here, this woman was called excellence by Boaz because she stuck with her mother-in-law, and she didn't leave because she wanted to stick with the God of Israel. And so that's why he called her excellence. So Ruth stuck with Boaz, and it became very evident that Boaz took a liking to her, and he tried to figure out a way to redeem her. Now, here's something I need to tell you. Redeem means, in a sense, really putting her back into the right standing as a freed woman, in a sense, okay? As a freed woman. We were lost when we sinned, when humankind sinned. Okay, let's start that way. When humankind sinned in the garden, we were sold into slavery, okay, to Satan. We were created God's children. God created us, and he wanted to have a people for himself. And we were those people, okay? He created us as his people. However, when we sinned, we became the property of Satan, okay? So we were the property of God, yet we chose to stray away. So God came up with a plan to what we call redeem us. In other words, he buys us back. Okay, he buys us back. Jesus came, he paid the price that was necessary to buy us back, to redeem us. He died on the cross, and he redeemed us. That means he brought us back again to God, so we can become again his people. And so this is what happens with Ruth and Naomi. Okay, Naomi, she was married to Elimelech, and the only way that she could continue to be a freed woman or a woman of standing, she had to produce an heir. And unfortunately, sorry, that's the way it was in the Old Testament. The woman had to produce an heir in order to have that standing as a free woman or as a respected woman, part of the clan in a sense. She had to produce an heir. Well, Naomi did, but those heirs died. Okay, the heir, both of them died. And with the heir, also possibility that she would have grandkids to continue that inheritance. So when she came back, she could not claim the land of her husband as her own, okay, because she didn't have an heir. So the only chance she had is for the wife of one of her sons to claim that inheritance from the clan. Okay? So what she did is she goes to, usually when the son, the firstborn, dies and he does not have an heir, the woman needs to go to the brother and request that he will impregnate her for her husband, for her previous husband, so she can raise an heir for her previous husband. That is possible. And that can also go on with the next relatives, okay, with any relatives. So in other words, Ruth could have gone to her relatives, the kinsmen, people in her clan, and have them redeem her and the inheritance which was hers. And we read that in I think at the end. Oh yeah, here. Ruth 4:3. No, 4:5. It says, Then Boaz said, On the day you buy the field, because see what Boaz did. Boaz went to one of the other relatives and say, hey, do you want to buy Elimelech's field? Okay. He said, sure, I'll buy the field. But Boaz said in 5, then Boaz said, on the day you buy the field from the hand of Naomi, okay, you must also acquire Ruth the Moabite, the widow of the deceased, in order to raise up the name of the deceased on his inheritance. Okay, so that went hand in hand. And the close relatives said, I cannot redeem it for myself, lest I jeopardize my own inheritance. Redeem it for yourself. You may have my right to redemption, for I cannot redeem it. Okay. So in other words, when he does that, he loses kind of his right for claiming it for himself, because he's raising it for Elimelech and his descendants, even though there's not a clear line. Obviously, it doesn't really matter, in the Jewish law. The Jewish law only matters that somebody will continue that line by pledging themselves. I mean, since Ruth was the wife of she was the daughter-in-law of Naomi, or the daughter-in-law of Elimelech. She could redeem, or she could continue that inheritance for her husband. I know that's very complicated, but that's the way it was. And so a Gentile was allowed to redeem, or to step in that redemption process. And that's why I think this story is just so wonderful. And it is kind of sad that Jews do not see that, okay? Because this wasn't the first time this happened. It wasn't the first time at all. Up to this point, God used now 3 Gentile women three Gentile women to continue the lineage of the Messiah. And for me, that is extraordinary. It not only parallels, of course, the marriage relationship between Christ and the church, which we will talk about in a little bit, but it also shows that even in the lineage of Jesus, Gentile women were very vital. Now, let me talk about these other Gentile women that were influencing or part of the line of Messiah, Gentile women. There was, and you can find that in Ruth as well, 4:12. It starts. Moreover, may your house, because he's saying now, after Boaz says that he's going to get married to Ruth, people are telling him, they're blessing him, the elders. The court and the elders said, we are witnesses. May the Lord make the woman who is coming into your home like Rachel and Leah, both of whom built the house of Israel. And may you achieve wealth in Ephratah and become famous in Bethlehem. Moreover, may your house be like the house of Perez, whom Tamar bore to Judah, through the offspring which the Lord shall give you by this young woman. Okay, now who is Tamar? Who is Perez? Who is, of course, people know Judah, right? Judah was one of the sons of Jacob, who was promised to bring forth the Messiah. Judah married a Gentile woman, okay? You know, very similar to Naomi and Elimelech. Oh, well, actually the sons, but he married a Gentile woman. He had 2 sons, and he gave the firstborn a wife called Tamar, and we don't know that she was from the tribe of Israel. Okay, we don't know that. Most likely, she probably was a Gentile woman herself. So she does not bear him children, and he dies. So she was promised that the second-born will marry her and bear her a son for her husband. The second-born did not want to, again, jeopardize his inheritance and did not want to give her or make her a child. And so the third-born, or Judah promised Tamar the third-born, his third-born. He never did follow through. So Tamar came up with her own plan, and she dressed up as a harlot, and Judah went into her and impregnated her, and Tamar bore twins. Okay, I don't remember what the 2 twins, but one of them was Perez. Okay, one of them was Perez. And Perez again became the great-great-great-grandfather. We see that at the end of Ruth, the line, Perez was born in Hezron to Hezron, or Perez was born Hezron Ram, and so on, okay, which we ended up then by Boaz. Okay, so he then becomes the lineage of the Messiah. Now, after Tamar, there was another Gentile woman who becomes part of the line of the Messiah, and that was Rahab. Now, who was Rahab? Rahab was an actual harlot. She was a Gentile in Jericho, and she married Solomon. It's not Solomon, King Solomon. It's Solomon, which was during Joshua's time. Okay, who lived during Joshua's time when they entered the promised land and took over Jericho. So Rahab married the Gentile harlot, married Solomon, who became the father of Boaz. Okay, I mean, for me, that is just also so wonderful. It is just wonderful. Okay, so really, Boaz's mother was a Gentile, and maybe that is why he was as open and as kind to to Ruth, because he had a Gentile mother who was even a whore. Now, did Boaz know that? Of course he knew that. Okay, so this wasn't very far away, from when they entered actually the promised land. So you can read that at the end of Ruth. That's 4:20, 21. Okay, so you can see that these Gentile women became part of even the line of Messiah. Okay, and I already said that Ruth is an example, a wonderful example of Messiah being the kinsman redeemer, marrying a Gentile bride. A Gentile bride. And again, I'm not saying that Jews don't have the right to be the bride of Christ. That's not what I'm saying. But I think what we're supposed to learn from Ruth is that the Gentiles have equal right to be the children of God. Okay, not just the Jews. This is a really, I mean, if Jews would just read Ruth and really see what is going on in this book, hopefully they would see the parallel between this story of Ruth and Boaz and Christ, or Messiah, the bridegroom and the bride in Messiah. Because that is paralleling so much of what Jesus did for all of us, not just for the Jews. And again, Ruth is a very old book, very old story. This story happened, the next generation after they entered the promised land. That's how old it is. So the Jews knew this story for a long time. They should have known the purpose of God forever. This redemption is not just for the Jews, but this redemption is also for the Gentiles. And yes, I just don't know why they would not see that. It's just, I don't know, it's just beyond me. But it's very clear. I'm encouraging you to read this book, okay, to read Ruth, and think about this, about the kinsman redeemer, because that is really the story of the kinsman redeemer. Ruth is. So I know it's a small book, right after the Judges. It's very hard to find, but it gives a wealth of information. So if you have any comments, if you would like to add something when you're reading Ruth in that kind of frame of mind, again, I brought this up because it fits so well in my book about Messiah. Because you know what? If you want an example uh, yeah, a symbolism. Because see, we have to look at symbolism in the Old Testament about Messiah and God, the plan God had for Messiah. If you want a big symbolism, and I came up with several symbolisms, like Rachel and Leah being really symbols of Israel and, well, of Israel. Okay, Israel being a mix of Jews and Gentiles. Okay, two wives coming together, forming the 12 tribes. Okay, Rachel and Leah. Okay, which I really believe they're symbolizing very much um, Israel and the Gentiles. And who are the Gentiles? Of course, now I'm thinking. Of course, Rachel is symbolizing, with Joseph and Benjamin, symbolizing the Gentiles, and Leah symbolizing Israel. So here again, this story is even better, and unfortunately, I just came across it right now. I'm glad I came across this. Shouldn't be unfortunate, but that is even a greater symbol of Messiah and his bride. And so read it and let me know what you think about it. Write it in the comments section, and I will talk to you more later. Have a good time and let the Holy Spirit guide you.